Yo, it's Bible study time, and I wasn't expecting to do this until um I started Exodus. However, I figured why not trial and error and try to get used to this live stream while I'm finishing Genesis. So pray for patience on your guys' behalf. Set up my mic here. Says excellent connection on YouTube. Not really expecting a traffic flow here, but again, I'm just filling everything out, seeing what options here. We're going to be Bible studying chapter 41 from the prison to the palace, the book of Genesis. Let's see what my options are here. I thought I'd be able to see it live just to make sure everything is good, but I guess not. Oh, here we go. All right. Cool, here we go. All right. Again, not expecting no foot traffic. Let's just get going. Oh, everything. A little delay. Fine. Yeah, not expecting no foot traffic. Let's just get going. Oh, everything. All right, so Bible, Genesis chapter 41, from the prison to the palace. Let's go. Genesis 41 1. And it came to pass at the end of the 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. What's really happening? Again, just I'm painting the picture a little bit better in case some verses are a little bit harder to comprehend or to make something out of it. So what's really happening is just recapping the verse, or kind of helping us understand how this verse goes with the previous verse, or kind of foreshadowing something. So let's see. 2 years passed with no change for Joseph, but God has not forgotten him. Pharaoh's dream is the beginning of God's perfect timing to bring Joseph out of prison. Genesis 41 2. And behold, there came out of the river 7 well favored kine and fat fleshed, and they fed in a meadow. What's really happening in Egypt, the Nile River was the source of life and food. So Pharaoh's dream would have seemed especially important. The 7 healthy cows are the first symbol in a message God is about to reveal. Genesis 41 3. And behold, 7 other kind came up after them out of the river, out favored and lean fleshed, and stood by the other kind upon the brink of the river. The 7 thin cows stand beside the healthy ones, creating a sharp contrast. God is preparing Pharaoh for a message about 2 very different seasons that are coming. Genesis 41 4. And the ill favored and lean fleshed kind did eat up the 7 well favored and fat kind. So Pharaoh woke. The strange part of the dream is that the weak cows consume the strong cows, showing something unnatural is happening. Pharaoh wakes up troubled because he knows this dream has a deeper meaning. Genesis 41 5. And he slept and dreamed a second time. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. God gives Pharaoh a second dream with a different symbol, but the same message. The healthy grain represents a time of great abundance that is coming to Egypt. Genesis 41:6, and behold, 7 thin ears and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. The wheat grain appears after the healthy grain, showing another coming season of difficulty. The dream continues to reveal a future contrast between plenty and hardship. Genesis 41:7, and the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. What's really happening? The second dream repeats the same message as the first. A time of abundance will be followed by a severe famine. Pharaoh realizes these dreams are unusual and must have an important meaning. Genesis 41:8, and it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof, and Pharaoh told them his dreams, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Pharaoh knows these dreams are important, but none of Egypt's wise men can explain them. God is showing that the answer will not come from human wisdom, but from him through Joseph. Genesis 41:9. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. The chief butler suddenly remembers Joseph after 2 years have passed. God uses the moment to bring Joseph back into the story at exactly the right time. Genesis 41:10, Pharaoh was wroth with his servants and put me inward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. What's really happening? The butler begins explaining to Pharaoh why he was once in prison. He is bringing up the moment when God placed Joseph in the right place to meet him and reveal the dreams. Genesis 41:11, and we dreamed a dream in one night. I and he, we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. So it's really happening. The butler tells Pharaoh about the dreams he and the baker had while in prison. This reminds us that God was preparing Joseph long before Pharaoh ever needed him. Genesis 41:12. And there was there with us a young man, an Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard, and we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man he interpreted according to his dream. The butler tells Pharaoh about Joseph, the Hebrew servant who explained their dreams in prison. The person Pharaoh needs has been waiting on notice until this exact moment. Put things on. It's a long chapter. Genesis 41:13, and it came to pass as he interpreted to us, so it was, he restored me unto mine office, and him he hanged. The butler confirms that Joseph's interpretations came true exactly as God revealed them. This gives Pharaoh a reason to trust Joseph's ability to explain the meaning of his dreams. Genesis 41:14, then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came in unto Pharaoh. Joseph is quickly drawn out of prison and prepared to stand before Pharaoh. After years of waiting, God opens a door, suddenly changing Joseph's situation in a moment. Genesis 41:15, and Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. Pharaoh explains that he needs someone to understand his dreams. Joseph's reputation for interpreting dreams has reached the highest ruler in Egypt, but the real source of wisdom is God. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. Joseph does not take credit for himself, but points Pharaoh to God. He understands that true wisdom and the ability to reveal the meaning of dreams come from the Lord. Genesis 41:17, and Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the banks of the river. Pharaoh begins telling Joseph the dream that has troubled him. The dream will reveal God's warning about what is coming to Egypt. Genesis 41:18, and behold, there came up out of the river seven kine, it's got to be tiny in flesh and well favored, and they fed in a meadow. Pharaoh repeats the first part of the dream about seven healthy cows coming from the river. These cows represent the future time of great abundance that God is revealing. Genesis 41:19, and behold, seven other kind came up after them, poor and very ill favored, and lean flesh, such as I had never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. Pharaoh describes the seven weak cows that appear after the healthy ones. Their extreme condition shows that coming hardship will be unlike anything Egypt has experienced before. Genesis 41:20, and the lean and the ill-favored kind did eat up the first seven fat kind. Pharaoh continues describing the strange dream where the weak cows consume the healthy cows. This unusual picture points to a future famine that will be so severe it will erase the memory of the years of plenty. Genesis 41:21, and when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, that they were still ill favored as at the beginning, so I awoke. Even after the weak cows consume the healthy ones, they still look just as weak. The dream shows how severe the coming famine will be. It will completely overcome the years of abundance. Genesis 41:22, and I saw in my dream, and behold, seven ears came up in one stalk, full and good. Pharaoh shares the second part of his dream about seven healthy ears of grain, like the healthy cows, just represent the coming season of great prosperity before hardship arrives. Genesis 41:23, and behold, seven ears withered, thin and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after with them. Pharaoh describes the weak grain that appears after the healthy grain. The second symbol repeats the warning that a severe time of trouble will follow a season of blessing. Genesis 41:24, and the thin ears devoured the seven good ears, and I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. What's really happening? Pharaoh explains that his wise men could not understand the dream. God has made the answer unavailable to human wisdom so that Joseph can reveal what only God knows. Genesis 41:25, and Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh are one. God has shewed Pharaoh what he is about to do. What's really happening? Joseph explains that both dreams are one message from God. The dreams are not random, they are a warning of what God is preparing to bring upon Egypt. Genesis 41:26, the seven good kine are 7 years, and the seven good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. Joseph explains that the healthy cows and grain represent the same thing, 7 years of abundance. God is showing for Pharaoh that Egypt will first experience a long season of blessings. Genesis 41:27, and the seven thin and ill-favored kind that came up after them are 7 years, and the seven empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. Joseph reveals that the weak cows and grain represent 7 years of famine that will follow the years of plenty. God is warning Egypt ahead of time so they can prepare for the coming hardship. Genesis 41:28. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he has shewed unto Pharaoh. Shew? So makes it clear that this message is from God, not his own wisdom. God has given Pharaoh a warning before the events happen so he can respond wisely. Genesis 41:29. Behold, there comes 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. Joseph explains that Egypt will first experience 7 years of great harvest and abundance. This blessing is not just a gift to enjoy, it is a preparation for what is coming next. Genesis 41:30, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. Joseph explains that the years of abundance will be followed by a severe famine. The coming hardship will be so great that people will struggle to remember the good years before it. Genesis 41:31, and the plenty shall now be known in the land by reason of the famine following, for it shall be very grievous. Joseph explains that the famine will be so severe it will overshadow the years of plenty. God is showing Pharaoh the seriousness of what is coming so he can prepare. Genesis 41:32, and for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing it is established by God, and God will surely bring it to pass. What's really happening? Joseph explains that God repeated the dream to show that the message is certain. The events will happen soon because God has already determined what is coming. Genesis 41:33. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise and set him over the land of Egypt. Joseph does not only explain the problem, he gives Pharaoh a solution. Egypt needs a wise leader who can prepare the nation before the famine arrives. Genesis 41:34, let Pharaoh do this and let him appoint officers over the land and take up the fifth part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. Joseph explains the plan. During the 7 good years, Egypt should save a portion of the harvest. God is showing that preparation during times of blessing can help people endure difficult seasons ahead. Genesis 41:35, and let them gather all the food of those good years that come and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. Joseph continues explaining the plan to store food during the years of abundance. God is preparing Egypt to survive the famine by using wisdom before the crisis arrives. Genesis 41:36, and the food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. Joseph explains the purpose of saving the food. It will protect Egypt during the coming famine. God gives Joseph wisdom to not only recognize the problem, but prepare a solution before it arrives. Genesis 41:37, and the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. Pharaoh and his officials recognize that Joseph's plan is wise. God has given Joseph favor even before Pharaoh fully understands how God is working through him. Genesis 41:38, and Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? Who recognizes that Joseph has a wisdom beyond ordinary human ability. Even a ruler who does not worship the Lord can see that God is working through Joseph. Genesis 41:39, and Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God has shewed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Pharaoh acknowledges that Joseph's wisdom comes from God, not himself, because Joseph has shown both spiritual understanding and practical wisdom. Pharaoh sees him as the right person for the job. Genesis 41:40, thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. Pharaoh places Joseph in a position of great authority over Egypt. The prisoner who was forgotten is now trusted to lead, showing how God can completely change a person's situation. Genesis 41:41, and Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh officially gives Joseph authority over the entire land of Egypt. God has turned Joseph's years of suffering into a position where he can fulfill a greater purpose. Genesis 41:42, and Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen and put a gold chain about his neck. Pharaoh gives Joseph symbols of authority and honor, showing that he now has the power to act on Pharaoh's behalf. The prisoner who once wore chains is now dressed as a leader because God's plan was greater than his circumstances. Genesis 41:43, and he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, bow the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. Joseph is publicly honored as the second in command of Egypt. The same people who once saw him as a prisoner now must recognize the authority God has given him. Genesis 41:44. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh gives Joseph complete authority to carry out his responsibilities throughout Egypt. Joseph's new position shows how God can elevate someone in his timing for a greater purpose. Genesis 41:45. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name, Zaphnath-Paneah, Zaphnath Peniel, and he gave him to wife as Azaneth, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh gives Joseph a new Egyptian name and a wife, showing that Joseph is being fully established in Egypt, even in a foreign land. God continues guiding Joseph into the role he prepared for him. Genesis 41:46. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. Joseph is 30 years old when God moves from prison into a position of leadership. After years of hardship, Joseph begins carrying out the responsibility God prepared him for. Genesis 41:47. And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth abundantly. What's really happening? The 7 years of abundance begin exactly as God revealed through Pharaoh's dream. Joseph's wisdom helps Egypt recognize his blessing as the time to prepare for the famine ahead. Genesis 41:48. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. The food of the fields which were round about every city laid he up in the same. Joseph leads Egypt in storing the extra harvest during the years of abundance. The wisdom God gave him is now being put into action to prepare for the coming famine. Genesis 41:49. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much until he left numbering. It was without number. The harvest is so great that Egypt gathers more food than they can count. God provides abundantly during the years of plenty, preparing them for difficult years ahead. Genesis 41:50. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of the famine. Before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bare unto him. Before the famine begins, Joseph's family grows with the birth of his 2 sons. Even after all he endured, God gives Joseph a new season of blessing and stability. Genesis 41:51. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh. Manasseh. For God said, He had made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. Joseph names his first son Manasseh because God helped him move beyond the pain of his past. This does not mean Joseph forgot his family, but that God healed him from the suffering he endured. Genesis 41:52. And the name of the second called he Ephraim. 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 For God had caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. Joseph names his second son Ephraim because God made him fruitful even in a place where he suffered. God turned the land of hardship into a place of blessing and purpose. Genesis 41:53. And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt ended. The 7 years of abundance come to an end, just as God revealed through the dream. The time of preparation is over, and the difficult season Joseph warned about is beginning. Genesis 41:54. And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph has said, and the dearth was in all lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. The famine begins exactly as God revealed, proving the warning was true. Because Joseph prepared, During the years of plenty, Egypt has food while surrounding lands suffer. Genesis 41:55. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he said to you, do. When the famine becomes severe, the people turn to Pharaoh for help. Pharaoh directs them to Joseph, showing that God has placed Joseph exactly where he needs to be. Genesis 41:56. And the famine was over all the face of the earth, and Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. The famine spreads, and Joseph begins distributing the food that was stored during the years of abundance. God uses Joseph's wisdom and leadership to provide for people during a desperate time. Genesis 41:57. And all the countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all lands. What's really happening? People from surrounding nations come to Egypt because the famine is affecting many lands. God has placed Joseph in a position where he can help not only Egypt, but many others as well. And that is it. Oof. One of the longer chapters, 57 verses. Genesis 41 comes to an end. We have 9 more chapters to go in Genesis before we get to Exodus. And I have read into Exodus probably about halfway. And that's when I stopped and said, you know what? I'm learning this so well that I wanted to share with anyone that wants to learn the Bible as well. And here's where we're at. And of course, I'm having a lot of fun with the shorts, and the shorts is moving along. I chose Proverbs because I've heard a lot of good things about the book of Proverbs. And I took some wanting to learn about King Solomon. Of course, I think I'll get to that when I actually continue the verse by verse reading of the Bible. But Proverbs is something I really wanted to share, and shorts kind of just the perfect pairing for it. And I am doing some other little things just to kind of help me reach some goals as far as YouTube goes and the whole um, ring with YouTube or whatnot. Uh, that kind of would steer me towards shorts, but again, the Proverbs shorts is so much fun doing those that I'm learning, of course, Proverbs, and getting to share that with anyone that wants to partake in the learning. Again, I'm no teacher. I'm just sharing my learnings as I learn. I know a lot of people comment, it looks like I'm reading from the screen. It's because I'm probably reading it for like the 5th time or the 6th time. And I can't seem to memorize it. And I kind of just want to get the shorts out because I want to continue learning. But that wraps up this Bible study. Again, I didn't expect to live stream until Exodus, but I'm going through the trial and error. So I see that I can kind of check the YouTube stream on my phone, and that's where I'll be able to see the chat and be able to kind of answer questions or just kind of I'm taking that. But again, not expecting any traffic flow as of right now. In the future, maybe. Let's see if I can close this stream up. Current viewers too. 11 views. Warning: the stream is what? Let's see what this says. There's the Lord on the recommend. Use a stream. All right. Everyone have a blessed night. A blessed night.